Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to build a real-world full-stack application. So it's a simple to-do app using React as the front end and FastAPI as the back end. This project is perfect for beginners or intermediate programmers who wants to see how a full-stack project fits together. So we'll cover everything from setting up the environment, building APIs, creating the front-end UI, to deploying our application live on the web. So even if you're brand new to full stack development, I will guide you every step of the way. And I'll try my best to explain all the concepts. So let's get started. I'm quite confused where to look, so don't mind me if I look here or there. So if you're wondering what does full stack mean, great question. You're asking the right questions. Think of it like building or managing a restaurant. The back end, our fast API, is like the kitchen. It will handle all the data, store your to-dos, and it will process the requests. Now for our front end, which is React, it's like the dining room. It is what customers see. It is what the users can see and interact with. So how do the back end and front end interact? They communicate through an API. So you can treat API as like waiters. They carry orders between the kitchen and the dining room, which is the back end and the front end respectively. So before coding, before starting, you will need some prerequisites. You will need Python 3.11 or higher, and you also need to have Node.js installed. This is used to run our React application. You also need to have an IDE. I will be using VS Code. You can also follow along and use VS Code if you want. And you also need to have this is optional, but it's better if you have a GitHub account, since I will be creating a GitHub repository, and I will push my changes here. So yeah, and finally, the most important thing that I need from you guys is your time and your curious mind. Don't worry if along the way you will hear some terms that sound confusing. I'll try my best to explain everything as we go. And if I fail on explaining something, then you can always use the internet for that. Remember. Alright, our first task for today is the project setup. This will be our first episode, guys. So before we start coding, let's talk about project structure, which is also an important part. So think of it like organizing your desk before starting your homework. It makes everything easier. You know where to find your pencil or your notebook. All of your things are arranged. So we will create separate folders for our front end and back end. So let me create the main folder or directory for our application. So I will just make directory, what do we call this? To do app. Yeah. So I created a folder called to do app, and I will just change directory. So I will cd to do app, and I am inside the to do app. We will be creating two folders, the back end and the front end. So why do we need to separate the front end and the back end? So we will be separating our front end and back end because they are two different technologies. Our back end is in Python and our front end is written in JavaScript or TypeScript. And these two, the back end and front end, they have different deployment process. So you're gonna see later on when we make our application. And it's easier to maintain and debug since you have to separate the code base for the front end and the back end. So it's just easier that way. So in the real world, you will have the back end team and the front end team. Or if you're like me, a full stack application developer. Since we are inside the to-do application, what should we do now? We need to create another folder called backend. So I'm very sorry if you hear my dogs. Going back to the backend. Let's make the backend, right? And actually, I would like to cd change directory to the backend and initialize a git repo. As you can see on my terminal, it says master. It means that I have my master branch and I have initialized my git repo. So git treat git as like having multiple save files for your project. You can always go back to a working version if something breaks. So I just cleared my terminal. So I'm still inside the backend folder, okay? And I think what we need to do is first we need to verify if we have Python installed. Just type in Python. What should you call this? Hyphen hyphen, yeah. Hyphen version. And you can see I have Python 3.11.1. So if you have that, then you are all good. And right now, I will not open my VS Code yet. So I will create a virtual environment first. So why am I creating a virtual environment? This will basically isolate the workspace for this project. So if I need some packages or different versions of different packages, then I could isolate this inside this project or workspace only. So I don't need to touch any other project, since you could actually install a Python package globally. So we don't want to do that. We just want to install Python libraries inside this project only. Alright, so it's done now. The virtual environment is created. At this part, I would want to open VS Code just to see what did we create. Let me zoom in like this. So you can see here inside our backend folder, we have our virtual environment. Remember guys, I have opened VS Code inside our backend folder. So yeah, the only folder that is being opened here is the backend folder. And when we entered the Python, we created this. And the way that we could activate the virtual environment is I will open a terminal inside our VS Code. So what we need to do now is this: venv \scripts \activate. Alright, as you can see, venv is there. We are on our venv. So this is our backend. This is our data kitchen. And FastAPI is like having a super smart chef. Why did I choose FastAPI over other frameworks? So first is it automatically creates API documentation. It has built-in data validation, so it will catch mistakes before they could cause problems. It's very fast and it's modern, and I don't know, it just has great error messages that will actually help a developer. Since we are inside our backend now and we have created the virtual environment, what do we need to do now? We install the required packages. So to install the libraries, we just say pip. Pip is just Python's library manager or package manager. So pip install FastAPI unicorn Kimi pedantic and Python multipart. Alright, so while it's installing, I will briefly discuss what the packages do. So the FastAPI, it is our web framework. It's basically the chef of our backend. And UVcorn, it is just the server that will run our backend. And we have SQL Alchemy, it will talk to our database. So it's what we use to talk to our database. And pedantic, it validates the data. It's basically quality control. And we will need to create one file here. Our first file, guys. It's called main.py. This is the entry point towards our backend. So first, we need to import FastAPI. So from FastAPI, import FastAPI. And we will create our first FastAPI instance. What is this? But we will call it to do API. And version 0.001 or 1.00. Alright, so let me just place in our first root here, and the associated, yeah, I think this works. Nice job, AI. This is our first pieces of code in here. So what does this mean? The app that get this part, it's called a root decorator. So you have our annotation here, at, then app, which is basically this, and what method or operation you want to call, and what type of request this root is executing. So in this sense, it's get. Later on, you will learn about post and post. So this, yeah, basically this one, but fetch, not now. We only have get, post, put, and delete. So these four. And to give you a little background, get is what we use when we like to read or retrieve data. So this is the function associated with this root, our root route. So basically, when we call this route, I will just say it as route. So when we call this route, it should return this message, hello world. So this read root is just a Python identifier. You can name it anything you want, but it should be descriptive. So in this sense, it's read root, since this is the root route. So since we have our first root path, we could actually run our backend now. Uvicorn main app reload. So the hyphen reload is just so that we don't keep on running our backend code over and over again. So it just reloads if there are changes from our backend code. All right, see, it's starting. Application startup complete. It says here that it's running on this site. This is basically the local host. It says hello world. Wow, we have our first backend code. And if we go to Postman, so you can also install Postman, an application to test out your APIs much easier. So let us test our backend. And what was that again? Go to Postman and check out this. You can see here there are different types of methods: get, post, put, patch, delete. And this is what I said earlier, right? So in this case, our code says that we only have the root route, which is this, the get, and we can actually get it since we have described the response there, or we have created the response if a user will fetch from this. And it says hello world. And for good time's sake, you could also have another here, say idol Willie Revillame. Let's see if this works. Ayun, idol Willie Revillame. Ayun, nakuha niya si Willie Revillame. And so that's it for this episode. I love to dive more deeper into these concepts, so I have divided it into episodes. And for the next one, I will be talking more about models. And I think this is effective. Bite-sized contents is the best way to learn if you're a beginner. I will push this inside the Git repo, and I will name it as episode 1. So thanks you guys, and see you on the next one.